Two phenomenal human beings as the stars of the show, and they also happen to be SmartSuite. I would call them experts. So, ton of information. I want to pass it over to them quickly, but just a few housekeeping items. But yeah, welcome. My name is Jeff McAdam. I'm an account manager here at SmartSuite, and part-time I'm on the webinar team. So as an account manager, I get to spend my days with customers. And Rick said early on in my journey here, SmartSuite has a low bar of entry as a starting point, but it's got a very high ceiling. And our guest today, I think, is a great example of that. As far as taking things to that high end of the ceiling and maybe at times going beyond that ceiling. I would call him an innovator. And I had a quote on my phone today, this morning when I woke up, and I just have to read it because it's exactly how I feel Andy is innovators are more focused on the vision than the obstacles that stand in the way. And I think Andy and Rick, our host with the most, are two good examples of that. So on the webinar side, if you haven't been on a webinar, or if you have, thanks for coming back. Our goal is to provide a holistic approach from our founders' perspective, the executives, the product team, our solution engineers, support, and our customers. And that's really what today's webinar is all about. It's sharing the perspective and experience of a SmartSuite customer. And to help to do that today, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our two stars of the show, Rick Palaia, Chief Revenue Officer of SmartSuite. I'm going to call him AKA resident webinar host. If SmartSuite doesn't work out for some reason, Rick, you always could be a host on any show, any webinar. You're phenomenal at it. Thank you so much for taking time to do it. And then Andy Levesque, I learned how to pronounce his last name yesterday, Levesque. He is the Chief Enterprise Architect at Gillette Children Specialty Hospital. And I'll let Andy provide a proper background and intro to kind of set the scene and the context for our fireside chat. And that's the format of today's conversation. I've been lucky enough to be in a lot of conversations with Rick and Andy during customer calls. And I just sit back and enjoy, and I learned so much during those calls. So today we're kind of letting everyone in on these conversations. It's going to be very conversational. It will be recorded, so feel free to take notes, but there'll be a lot of golden nuggets of knowledge shared throughout the conversation. But the focus today is on how modern enterprises are moving beyond isolated systems and spreadsheets toward unified platforms that connect every process, team, and department. And so today we're specifically going to look at how Andy is defining and implementing an enterprise operating system with SmartSuite to unify operations, strengthen governance, and drive smarter decisions at Gillette Children's Specialty Hospital. During the conversation, they'll touch on a bunch of things, but I'll just call out maybe three. They're going to overcoming challenges in unifying enterprise processes and systems, designing flexible yet governed architectures, and then integrating systems into one connected platform, and much, much more. So before turning things over to Rick and Andy, just a few housekeeping items. I touched on one already. The webinar will be recorded. You'll get a copy of that within 24 hours. And then participation. Please show Rick and Andy some love by providing some reactions through the conversation. And then last but not least, ask questions, right? In Q&A or in chat, we'll do our best to weave those questions into the conversation as we go along, and then we're going to save a bunch of time at the end to cover those questions. But don't hold back. Without any further ado, I will turn things over to Rick and Andy.
Brilliant. Great intro, Jeff. You talk about two amazing guys here, and I appreciate you acknowledging me as well, in addition to you two. So the impetus for today, the driver for today is, and you said it well, high ceiling at SmartSuite. There are a lot of things that can be done. Most of our customers are only leveraging, let's say, 20 to 30%, and they're very happy with that. Andy is the type, and I say this very affectionately, that is finding where the ceilings are, but I love that he's always providing ideas for how we raise those ceilings and thinking in a true enterprise context. Andy, I know Gillette is, as you don't feel it to be a very large organization of a few thousand folks, but you think big picture and you think for scale. So this is going to be an interesting conversation for all. Wanted to start with a comment you made, and we were preparing for this as we were getting to know the old Andy, if you will, winding back the clock, and you described yourself as someone often building IT in the shadows, the Dark Knight, if you will. So let's rewind the clock back to just some of the experience that you've had, perhaps even before your time at Gillette.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I started out after military. I started out on the business side of things. I was helping veterans integrate back into post-military, into college, and there was just a lot of complex processes. And we had access to the database, and I was just a frontline staff largely, and just building access databases, trying to automate processes and things like that, just with the tools that I could scrap together. So that was how I got started. And I've always been that tinker, whether it was, whether I was within IT or not, and just grew through there. Went up on the business side in management analysts, those types of roles to director level, and then eventually pivoted over into central IT and software development, where we had our own homegrown ERP, student information system in higher education, and loved the business analysis type role, and then worked my way up to architect, and then came over to Gillette to stand up the architecture team and see how we could scale, consolidate processes, rationalize apps, all of that good stuff. So that's a little bit of my background. I've been at it over 15 years now. And yeah, absolutely love what I do day to day. And I always try and think back to that person that I was, just trying to scrap together solutions, to try and make our work easier, to try and better serve those that we're trying to serve. Now it's our kids here at Gillette, that we're trying to help. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Oh, you're muted, Rick.
Of course. So the session is sure it's a little bit about SmartSuite, but it's really more about the way that you're thinking about enterprise scaling and these frameworks within operations. But let's think about, was there a moment when you had a realization there at Gillette that whatever was in place wasn't working and you needed to go evaluate your options?
I mean, one of the biggest impetuses for SmartSuite was, as we're looking at our project management, we had some folks that developed some amazing processes to manage their projects, and we wanted to scale that. And we're on spreadsheet style applications that we could copy paste, we could duplicate, but we really couldn't scale and have multiple departments working on a single data model, that data could be shared across, projects could be handed off, and that was one of the big steps to start looking to see what else was out there. Where is the market? Where's the innovation happening? On trying to still offer that democratized development, as I like to call it, not to take away the successes of what the individuals are able to do, like I did way back when, but so still letting them have that control, but then having the governance, that adaptive governance where it makes sense, so we could scale these solutions without creating a whole bunch of technical debt, extra work, those types of things.
Mhm.
And the consolidation too. We had different teams using different tools for project management, but also in other areas where we had electronic forms dumping into a different system for where we'd store the data, using yet a third system for how we try and automate some processes, do notifications. We wanted to centralize a lot of those apps. And then lastly, the reporting. How do we create reporting out of all those systems? It was a lot of integration uplift, trying to get that to our dashboarding tools. So we wanted to be able to try and bring all that under one system, one umbrella. That was largely what got us looking, and we found SmartSuite, which really checked a lot of those boxes, all those boxes.
Amazing. So in that moment, you kissed a lot of frogs. I remember you said early on, evaluated many tools of the no code variety, point solution variety, or ERPs, you name it. Any learnings during that exploration process, just in terms of evaluating, any tips you might have for folks with evaluating technology?
Uh, yeah, making sure that folks can still build. Often when you try and scale solutions, you take away control and you try and centralize the development and enhancement of those solutions. So it was certainly a challenge to try and find a solution that kept it kept it simple and intuitive to build and extend. to create your own views of your data that you want to do, to create another electronic form, to go make a tweak to how a data object should look. I mean, or just to add another option, a drop down. That was one of the big challenges, because we really wanted to preserve that ability. You know, someone that might be working in a spreadsheet style tool that might be very familiar to them. We didn't want to all of a sudden add a bunch of complexity that required you know, weeks or months of training and practice, and fear of breaking something, you know, that WYSIWYG. I want to make this change, and it's very obvious as I go and make this change. It's intuitive to know what this change is going to do. So that was one very important piece, but also preserving the scalability and the governance was very important for me as leading the architecture practice. Where can we step in at the right spots to address that governance, so we don't have just same sprawl, different tool? Those are some key pieces. So how do we scale that? How do we have centralized data sets where it's important? How do we build those integrations and protect the data that needs to be protected? A lot of considerations, but those were some of the biggest ones.
Okay. We will come back to that point on governance. It's a conversation we have with IT leaders every day, many times a day. Obviously relevant, as many CIOs right now are looking at reducing their tech stack, but not wanting to get rid of that control and that governance. So coming back, let's start. You know, the driver for this conversation is around building an enterprise operating system. What does that term mean to you, and why is it so important for modern organizations?
Yeah, not to, yeah, I know for some of the network and infrastructure folks, there might be other definitions, but I think in the modern age, for when we talk about apps and cloud and those types of pieces, the enterprise operating system is largely what is your go-to hub for a lot of the work that you do. I mean, for us, it's anything from where we do our strategy to our projects to our individual tasks, going to that same place, with the tools that display exactly what you need to be able to build additional apps that might operate independently but can integrate data without needing to build those integrations, APIs, to be able to dashboard that context in the same platform. We're not going to replace our ERP. We're not going to replace our electronic medical record system anytime soon. Let those systems do what they need to do. But when you do have that extra process, don't shoehorn into one of those tools if they're not intended to do it. Especially if your process is different. With a lot of those tools, you need to adopt their process, whether it works for you or not. So this is the kind of the operating system where, when we do need to build a process that is unique to us, or we want to augment or automate, especially across different systems, this is the hub that we go to, where we build that app, build that data set, build those views, automations to kind of centrally manage those processes. It's our hub.
Yeah. Double click on that. So we hear from not just IT leaders, but folks, you know, exploring SmartSuite. They want something very opinionated. We have the template library of 200 plus templates. We've invested the hours to make those pretty handy. There'll always be that bit, though, that a company wants to bring their own components to, right? So that it resonates. Tell me more about why it was so important to you to be able to have that flexibility versus just picking a tool that says do it this way.
Well, I mean, it's going to depend on the organization. For us, what it really felt like for me and a lot of our users is, for some of these large apps that bring in their own prescribed process, sometimes it felt like we're using 10-20% of that process or of that tool, paying for 100% of it,
Sure.
and then still not able to configure the 2 or 3 things that we need to do differently. And it felt like a waste in a lot of ways. One of the things that we brought into SmartSuite was one of our CRM platforms, it had all of these great whiz-bang things, and it just felt like we were spinning our wheels trying to use these extra pieces, and again, still not able to pull out the 2 or 3 data points, or requiring this big IT spin up in order to pull out a certain report and provide that report to leaders, or to automate a certain process. And then when we do that, when we do build that integration, that learning of those API endpoints only applied to that one boutique or large monolithic process, and that's non-transferable knowledge to to then apply to the next app that you need to build or extend on. So we had a lot of people that were specialized in a lot of different apps, and by centralizing, we're able to build up this central knowledge of people that are just gurus at SmartSuite, and they're able to collaborate and work with each other rather than just being a siloed guru on maybe one application. So that centralizing of that knowledge and to be able to get those extra 1-2 features that we need to utilize 100% of what we build and what we have, those are all some of the key drivers for us.
Yeah. I think there is something to be said there about building on a shared or unified platform, right? Like it's amazing when you build something in a point solution that has that flexibility. Maybe only you appreciate the depth or the coolness of what you've built if other folks aren't in there. But if you're all, building in a platform like SmartSuite, there's that there's the pride that you take in wanting to share with your colleagues. Like, check this out, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the examples that I really like is there's a whole community where every time there's a release, a feature release on SmartSuite, we share it and we talk about it and all the different ways that we can apply it and all the different corners, all the different apps, whether siloed or not. I mean, we geek out over the roadmaps, whereas if there's a new release on an ERP, fewer folks are going to be excited about that and really jazzed about that. So it helps with that, what I like to call the democratized ideation too.
Yeah.
When we think about the cool ways we can get together and talk about the cool ways that we leverage different features, or to brainstorm, we can all rally around and brainstorm a problem on the finance corner of the organization. But because we all know the platform, we can work and help that team, whereas they would have otherwise largely been on their own.
Yeah, I love it. Without sharing too much, there are some, let's say, holiday goodies that are coming over the next few weeks. Our product team has been very busy, so some key releases coming soon. I'll leave it at that. I'm super excited about it, especially for folks that are leveraging SmartSuite as a CRM or in some capacity like that. There are some really nice unlocks coming. All right, design approach. So you begin designing an architecture that balances flexibility for teams with governance. What sort of controls do you need in place at an enterprise level when you're thinking about that design?
That's a great question. And I mean, start with the data is one of the key areas that I look at first. One of my big focuses is to avoid duplication of data. Think about that source of truth and govern that when it needs to be governed to manage that deduplication. But take that adaptive approach at the same time. If someone wants to build a single process that data is not anywhere else or what have you, give them the keys, let them run, understand their permissions, understand what it is that they want to do in the scope of their application to see if there's any other considerations for governance. But I largely like to start with the data. The one example being our project meta model, which is our biggest success with SmartSuite. That people are really jazzed about is when we decided we wanted to bring some departments together on a unified project management tool. We realized very early on we need to standardize this data, and we call it our project meta model for that data structure, and standardize only what needs to be standardized, not take away the freedoms for additional data that an individual department might need to take. And one thing I like about SmartSuite is we can show or hide that extra data, show it only when it's relevant, hide it when it's not. But really start with that data layer and think about the permissions as well. Some of it's literacy, where we talk to individuals and say, hey, I want you to have the ability to build new solutions. But from a literacy perspective, here are the considerations. Here are the top standards that I want you to think about, and support them in that at the same time. But with that democratized development too, let them build, have them make sure that folks are communicating back to that central hub, so everyone's on the same page of what's being built, but then support them at the same time. The democratized development structure that I really like is you build the scaffolding, but then you tell me when you need data from other systems, and then we'll bring the experts for that. So we don't need everyone to be an expert in APIs or to have all the controls to access sensitive data in other systems. So that's part of our adaptive governance, is to say, you let us know when you need data from other systems. We'll spool up our data governance practice to have the right conversations at that time. But a lot of it just really comes back to standardize the data, govern that data where appropriate, and manage your permissions at the data level. And then the rest often falls into place.
And you share that you're managing a lot of this in SmartSuite, yeah? You have a solution where you're managing the solutions and all the metadata and whatnot? Yeah.
Yeah, then it gets pretty meta at that point to say,
Sure.
for how we do governance, for all the different solutions that we have, for all the licensed users and everything like that. It's a lot of the answers just come back to, oh, shoot, we need to organize this process. Well, why not just build it in SmartSuite? And that's worked really well for us to have that kind of meta SmartSuite governance process all within SmartSuite, because it also already has access to the data. Who's licensed, who's not, what are the solutions out there? All these types of questions are already in SmartSuite, so it really makes it easy.
Yeah, it's such a great call out. We hear with large organizations the consideration of scale. Okay, what if we want to deploy this to 1,000 users, 10,000, 100,000? What sort of approaches do you recommend? We start to have conversations about center of excellence, and I think just some of the components that you're talking about is leveraging SmartSuite to manage SmartSuite, and the underlying is just it's so clear. So I love that. You also talked about the connectivity to other systems. Um, we're hearing more and more about this, right? Like the way that SmartSuite might be positioned, it's never really meant to have been a point solution. Some people come in to use SmartSuite as a task and project management tool, then they see it's more of an operating hub or system. Any tips or strategies in connecting in with other business systems that you know are not going anywhere, your CRMs, your ERPs and whatnot? Any tips for the crowd there?
Uh, First, largely the same concept from the data governance is understand where the priorities are, especially deduplication. If you want to be able to reference applications, pull in from your asset management tool, if that's not in SmartSuite, to get that application list. Department lists, when you reference departments, don't rebuild that data. Make sure you're not creating duplicates that you need to maintain across. Build the integrations there, prioritize that. So that you have a central data set, a trustable data set. Don't reinvent it. So when we bring in something as simple as our application list, here are all the applications that we have throughout the entire organization. That's one of my roles is in the enterprise architecture space. Just bring that list from the other application, but don't allow that list to be updated in SmartSuite. When you have bidirectional sync or you allow editing on both sides, there's a lot of considerations, and the integration can get a little complex. So consider where that source of truth is, system of record, those types of challenges that exist throughout any data system. But then also try and make it real time. When you guys have released a lot of that webhook functionality, that was just absolutely huge, because event-based integration is what's going to save a lot of headaches from an integration standpoint. Batch should be last resort. Last resort should be manual, but avoid batch if possible. Leverage APIs, spend that extra time, use the automations in SmartSuite wherever possible. And for me, with influence over what apps we go with, also for the other apps, try and prioritize that those have event-based integrations as well, webhooks and the like. And then you can just talk directly system to system, but largely manage trust that source of truth, rely on that source of truth, bring that data over to prioritize deduplication. And so everyone's referencing off the same data set, and that's what helps you scale as well. That's critical to scaling, because if you manage the deduplication of data or avoid that duplication of data, when you go to scale, you don't have these very large merge efforts that can just
Yep.
Sometimes when you look at those, you say, I don't even want to scale this, or we're just going to let the mess get worse. So from an integration standpoint, those are some of the things I prioritize.
Right. Like process debt or data debt is it's great to be building quickly, but if you're not considered about scale from the get-go, then it can be daunting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tony's asking here in the chat, very interested in you were talking about the metadata level. Is this for sharing across solutions or within individual solutions? So maybe if you could articulate a little more around the help us visualize the solution that you're using in SmartSuite to manage process development. What are the sort of the things that you might be tracking in there?
To manage SmartSuite,
Correct. Yeah.
like the process in the SmartSuite. Yeah, so what we have in that SmartSuite governance, of course, all the solutions, both those that exist and those that are proposed. What are the current permission levels? Who's the owner? Who are the SMEs? Who has the rights to make edits on there? Does it have what data does it contain from different data domains? Where is SmartSuite the source of truth? What are integrations are coming into those different tools? So that we can understand high level any what are we accomplishing within SmartSuite. Some of the things that we want to do, we want to link that back to our architecture. So we have our business capability map, which I understand a lot of organizations might not have a business capability map, but that provides a lot of additional context. But be able to link it to your processes when you do have owners of different processes. Who are those owners of those processes? Those are some of the things that we try and manage within SmartSuite to understand how we're using it. Also, the departments that are involved, the different roles, that's something that's really important to us. So one of the things that we're working towards is what I like to call critical mass from licensed users. One of the big advantages of SmartSuite is you license once, deploy everywhere. And we're starting to experience where we have different roles within the organization that, by nature of the solutions that we deployed in SmartSuite, we've licensed a lot of individuals in certain role types. And when we go and add a new solution, or someone proposes a new solution, we assess the cost. We might say, oh, that requires X number of additional licensed users in order to accomplish this. Well, shoot, 60-70% of them are already licensed for other reasons. Yeah. So that's something else that we're trying to track from a cost perspective, so that we can understand where this critical mass of licensed users is, when we're going to cross that threshold, what the additional cost for additional uplift. And then by connecting the business capabilities, we can say, once we've licensed all users in a certain area, like marketing communications, for project management reasons, now we know we can give them the keys to run with a whole bunch of other solutions in marketing communications, from branding and all the other tasks they do, because they're already licensed. So that's one particular benefit that I really like out of our governance tool, is to understand by role where that critical mass is and where we can extend and hand off the keys.
Yeah, a few tracks I want to go through there, but we might need to trademark that if it's not already. License once, deploy everywhere. I mean, it's going to be in all of our early conversations. We take a lot of pride in that model, and we have customers that have hundreds of solutions built out in SmartSuite for various departments, groups, teams. That's really where the value is. It's not building the one solution to replace the one workflow. And you're talking here about different stakeholders that are involved. Just to give a sense of, it could be super high level, project managers, developers, whatnot. What are some of the stakeholder groups that you are building for, or that are involved in SmartSuite?
So it started with project managers for the few systems that applications that we replaced, and we replaced 7 apps. We actually rationalized, which is rare, and reduced our application just in our first phase. But project managers was an easy one. Who is managing projects, and whether it be an official capacity or unofficial capacity, that was really important to us, because there's still going to be the shadow IT. There's still going to be the those using spreadsheets, even if they don't have a PM title. But that was one of the biggest groups, is to understand who's doing project management. We also had our CRM users, as that was one of the apps that we rationalized down to SmartSuite, was our CRM. So who are all of the folks that need to be involved in this? Including that was an example where the license for CRM was expensive, very expensive. And again, we were using 10-20% of the app. So one of the things that we're able to do is to say, similar to PMs, who's actually licensed, who has that title, and have we been restricting licenses to only those title? Now that we're rationalized down to SmartSuite, who are the people that really should have had access that whole time, or we built workarounds because we couldn't afford to license everyone. And so that was another example of who's just involved in that CRM process for those relationships that we were maintaining, and get those folks licensed as well. And then with the success of project management, leaders throughout the organization. That's one that I'm tracking right now that I'm really excited about. We had, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but we had a lot of success centralizing all of our products, and our leaders loved that, the visibility, that real-time visibility, the ability to see a project of the projects that are important to them, or where they're the executive sponsor. And just if they had a question, they see exactly who it is, and they can ask the question right there in the platform, and that conversation is logged. And and so with that, they wanted to start doing more. They want to distribute to their teams. So leaders is another one of the roles that we're watching for, and continuing to license. I kind of have this internal mindset of any leader that says that they want to license, yeah, that's an easy yes, because that's how we get this adoption.
Yeah, let's drive that car a little bit more there. So the data visibility piece, which if I recall early conversations and you're evaluating SmartSuite and other tools, the ability to have that real-time data, compared to, I think, other tools, let's say reporting tools, BI tools, where you can extract the data from other systems, but it's not necessarily drillable or actionable. Talk a little bit about how you're engaging executives, because I still feel that's the biggest unlock, because when companies have SmartSuite at the user level, the mid-tier, and they can elevate it to their executives to see everything, you have the full ecosystem.
Right. It's the full vertical of the entire process, from individual tasks all the way up to that executive dashboard of the projects that are important and strategic to us as an organization.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely huge that they can drill down to that very granular level if they want. We have a very transparent approach to how we want to do that, so for our executive dashboard, it's the dashboard of what they've identified, so they can, quote unquote, subscribe to the different projects or programs that they want to monitor, and they have that initial dashboard, and then they have their metrics across for the things that we want to monitor, make sure that all of our strategic goals have projects that are associated with them, make sure none are in a frozen state or blocked state. And then just whether it's during an executive meeting where they're reviewing this and have questions, then they could dive in as a group, or whether it's a takeaway for an individual executive to be able to go in and see all the details, all the nuances about that project, who's working on it, what are the teams involved, have we considered all the impacted stakeholders, what's the change management look like. And then the searchability across the same database. So if you were to have some analytics or some dashboards through a separate platform, and you wanted to search and find any adjacent impacts outside of project management even, you can't do that drill down, or that would take an obscene amount of work to do. And we're starting to attach more of our projects to some of the other solutions, other processes that we're doing. And the examples is we do clinical research. We're talking about how we can attach clinical research to the projects. So it's not just a drill down to the projects that we can provide to our executives, but it's for them to go in and see how everything's interconnected for all the change that we're doing as an organization. Is this connected to a capital request? What's the funding source? I mean, looking at all the different connected systems that you would not be able to do if you were just a dashboard, or you could do, but that would be a crazy build to be able to have all that drill down capability. Where here it's just connected, and there's no extra effort, is one of my favorite things. There's no extra effort that anyone needs to do for the sole purpose of making that content visible on that dashboard. Everyone just does their work as you want to do your work, and it's just visible. You're not needing to export and load into a different system or put status updates somewhere else. You do your work, and then it's visible, and that really makes it intuitive.
Yeah. I think there's this notion that executives want to be engaged with PowerPoint presentations and summaries, and sure, having the ability to be concise and summarizing is critical. At the same time, having something that, in case they have questions, you're not fielding the back and forth, days long, week long conversations. You can provide what's relevant to them. One thing you've told me before about these dashboards you're creating is, like, if there's something that you have executives commonly asking for, you build it in the dashboard, answer once for all, that sort of mindset.
Yeah, and to the point of PowerPoints, that's what we were doing. We were taking the projects that were important, and quarterly we're going through this effort to say, reach out for each of these initiatives and say, what's the status update over here? What's your status update over there? And we talked very briefly about trying to build some integrations, and that would have just been a massive lift. And that was done quarterly. And now it's real time. Do the executives need to bump their meeting by a day? Do they want to bump it up? Do they have some questions for some ad hoc? Do they have a little bit of time to prepare what projects are going on under their purview, and prepare for that upcoming executive meeting? By getting away from the PowerPoint for this dashboard, it's really helped. And I'll say the discoverability too. When you consolidate and curate the list of projects that you think might be important to executives, um, you're making some assumptions. And for executives to be able to see, okay, show me all the projects, or is there something else that this department's working on? I thought that Andy mentioned something that he's working on, and I don't see it on this executive list. In the same spot that they see that, they can go in and search and see, oh yeah, here's the project. I want to elevate this as an executive, and I want to start monitoring this. And it's just a click to say, add this tag, or add this field so it appears in the executive dashboard. None of that was possible with the PowerPoints.
Yeah. It goes back to, if you're planning at some level in PowerPoints or in a wiki somewhere, like if your OKRs and your programs are being developed, your initiatives for the year in one place, the work is happening in another place, and then you're trying to report in some other place.
Mm-hmm.
This is not operating in 2025, right?
Right.
Should all exist together. There's a couple drilling questions here. Steve is asking, I think you touched on this briefly, but just a reminder, what initial use case do you feel was successfully implemented? What was that first unlock, the first win that fostered buy-in from other use cases or departments?
I mean, it was the project management, hands down. We had, in our first phase, we had several applications and a lot of electronic forms and other micro processes that we wanted to migrate. But project management, hands down. We had 3 departments that we were working in different systems for project management, but we handed off often, or we needed to coordinate with each other often. And we looked at the spreadsheet like tool that we were using, even though it was cloud-based, it just wasn't scalable. And you couldn't have dynamic views to that. So I have very different considerations for my projects as I work in years-long strategies, to some other individuals that working in shorter bursts of projects, or much more pragmatic or operational deployment. So it was just us, our 3 departments that said, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to build this meta model in SmartSuite. We're going to figure out what data is the same, where we need to be unique, and focus really hard on that good data model. And then we're going to create a dashboard for executives. We were 3 departments that were reporting to executives on a regular basis, so we created the dashboard. And then we told all other departments to say, hey, here's something that we have. If you want in, this is an opt-in. We're not going to require it. And very quickly, other departments started jumping in. We were over a dozen before we were fully done building the thing. Dozen different departments within the organization, and that we hit critical mass very quickly, where all of a sudden it was FOMO at that point from other leaders that had some projects that they wanted to do, to say, you're not having to build these PowerPoints, or you have a project management solution that it can hand off and see what others are working on, hand off without needing to replicate data, just change a field to say, this is no longer my department, this is your department. Or collaborate on multiple departments working on the same effort, but trying to maintain 2 different projects, and data's incomplete in both because they're not working the same. That quickly turned into FOMO. So that grew very quickly, a lot faster than we expected.
Yeah.
But then we just threw as much support at it as we could, because that was a huge success. And now it's SmartSuite's known throughout a lot of corners of the organization just because of that project management success.
This is amazing. The undying power of FOMO. So I love that. So you didn't require folks to use SmartSuite.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. That was in standing up an enterprise architecture practice taught me a lot, because I could have taken a governance approach or what have you, but a phrase that I rallied around is passive demonstration of value. I will work with the folks that want to work with us. Technology push rarely, if ever, works. Technology pull is where the success is. So that passive demonstration of value, it was the three of us that really wanted a better solution, wanted to innovate, and we made sure to consider what other departments might want, and tried to make sure we built that meta model for project management that had those considerations. But yeah, that passive demonstration of value is really important to me, because that's what creates that technology pull. People are excited, people want in, it's now their idea to come in. And it worked great, especially in this use case.
Andy, your treasure chest of sound bites here. We're getting some absolute platinum pebbles that we're pulling out here. So yeah, the pull of technology, it's so true. How are you then socializing? Like, what are some of the strategies to make sure that the right people are seeing these solutions?
One thing that worked really well is the top down. So we wanted to deliver for the full vertical from the individual task level, so folks can manage their tasks without a crazy amount of overhead if they don't want it. And so those individual contributors all the way up to the executives to understand what their goals were, what they want to see, and really replicate that PowerPoint, but in a real-time dynamic view. And so when we created that full stack, that full vertical, from individuals up to the executive leaders, the message got out very fast as to how what SmartSuite is, what we're accomplishing, what the time savings is, that it was scalable. One of the first things that people are concerned about is to say, I can't compromise a lot of the things that we do. Every department is legitimately unique with some unique needs, and to be able to immediately respond to that, say, yeah, if you have if you have 5 extra fields or questions that you ask when someone requests a project of you, yeah, that's easy to add, and you don't need to spin off on your own solution. So yeah, having that adaptability, but having that full stack so it's being talked about at all altitudes of the organization. I think those were some critical adoption pieces.
This is fantastic. SOPs, are you managing those in a certain place? Does any of that live in SmartSuite?
For like how to build in SmartSuite, what some of those standards are.
Yes, interesting. Just more broadly, company SOPs. Like, do you have a repository of where these things? This could be SmartSuite centric or non. Your operating procedures. Is there a place where those live?
Some of it, when we do run that process through SmartSuite, we try and put within the solution guide what are the SOPs in SmartSuite. I'm all for self-documenting processes, and that's what I really like about a lot of these low-no code tools is documenting where you actually do the work, to make sure that's easily discoverable, and then having intuitive UIs and flows, so that it's largely self-documenting. So we do try and do that wherever possible. I love the solution guide concept, to say, here, put the information of how this process works, how it should be done, the definitions of the different fields, put them all right there where you're doing the work. The help text is hugely helpful for each field, to say, don't put in just in that field a definition of what you mean by that title of that field. Put in some of that SOP language, how this field should be used, what are appropriate values, where to reach out if you have questions, especially as you translate people from different systems. We've had people with where they do projects where they have dozens of different statuses that you can have for a project, and we wanted to try and consolidate that down. So we put in the language of that help text to say, here's how you translate. If you had these 3 statuses, that should be this status, those types of things. So we try and self-document as much in SmartSuite when we have that process in SmartSuite, and that's been working pretty well. And I intend to lean into that more and more.
Nice. Solution guides and yeah, documenting like help text it's not talked about enough. When you're doing user testing and you're getting that feedback, trying to think about just implementing the feedback, but also the next batch of users that you have go through, how can they self-explore and figure it out? So this goes back to the topic of adoption, which I'm seeing several questions around that point. I say this probably 3 times a day in various conversations, but a technology is only as powerful as its ability to be adopted, right? Adoption is everything, really. So change management, moving executives, users off of other systems, and this also ties into a question. Different executives will probably have different preferences in the tools that they use. What was it about SmartSuite, and what did you seek in your evaluation to find something that could be accommodating enough to meet the desires of different executives?
Yeah. One of the things I really like is we can standardize the data model. We did this in our project management solution in SmartSuite to have that standard data model so that all reporting works. But then people can build views, dashboards, however they want that suits their process. We can show or hide fields, whether it's relevant or not. So if there's some specific fields for project management or for project requests that are specific to our IS departments, then show it when it's an IS request. Don't show it if it's not. But then each department has a different level of granularity. So some want to do, go full PMBOK, milestones, programs, projects, individual tasks, subtasks, all those things. So our meta model accommodates that. But then also if someone just says, I just want to throw placeholders on my project list of here are the projects I'm working on, and I only care to have a title and who's responsible for it. And all of that can be accomplished and clean for the departments that are on the meta model. And if you have that very granular approach, you see all the fields. If not, you don't. And then to be able to create all the views, the dashboards have been hugely helpful because that's where people really want to personalize their process. They often don't need to personalize at the data level. They want to personalize as to say, how do I click through my flow? So for me, I like my dashboards for my team to be, what conversation are we having at the time? Is this me? I'm working on some of my projects. I need to see what project I need to work on as I have some free time right now. I go to our dashboard and I go to the tab for my projects that I'm working on. Are we having our weekly department meeting? Here are the things that we find ourselves always asking. Here's how we surface where we need to have more conversations as a department. We have a tab for that. That's exactly that view, caters to exactly how I run my department meetings. And every other department, they can have their own dashboard. They build their own dashboard of exactly what they want to talk about, how they talk about it, how they go through their work. And it's that unified data model underneath that runs it all. So it looks like complexity and sprawl and technical debt, but it's not, because we prioritize a good data model underneath. And I really like how SmartSuite handles that. That's very powerful.
Amazing. Yeah, it goes back to the concept of how much do you want to customize versus standardize. If you have that standardization in place, it makes it easier for people to customize, right? And the things that might matter
Absolutely.
visually. Lee talked about different views being a key unlock too, is not everybody's going to drop into wanting to use a grid or spreadsheet like view. So, and you can offer that flexibility because it's the same underlying data.
Mhm.
Love it. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. Questions keep rolling into just about your usage. This is very telling because I can see some IT folks here and some of the names that are involved. Success. It all comes down to how you're tracking and measuring. Adoption of a tool is key, but what other metrics or outcomes would indicate that enterprise operating system is delivering real business value?
I mean, quantitative and qualitative. Have smart metrics for sure, have something specifically measurable, and that should be at the project level for sure. And with each solution that you build and deploy in SmartSuite, you want to make sure you have metrics that define that success. And it's going to vary wildly between whatever solution that you're building within SmartSuite. From a project management level, for example, one of our goals is, of course, to reduce that technical debt. And we certainly did that. So we had a lot of hours that would be spent if you're at 3 departments wanting to run a similar matching model for managing their projects. Then every time you change that, then you need to duplicate that, and we'll do this whole reintegration, build, deploy effort for every department because it was a lot of duplicative work. Whereas now we save that time. We don't do that. We want to add an enhancement. We want to add a new field for how we do project management. We just, again, build and deploy once, and everyone sees that benefit. So those hours to maintain those solutions was a big piece. For project management, it was also the departments that adopted passive demonstration of value. And that built up so fast that it wasn't a really monitor over time. It was just, we just have this massive backlog of all these people that want in and to bring them in. But then there's also the qualitative. How do people feel about it? One of the things that one of my peers I was talking to recently said, building and using an application should bring joy. Is this intuitive? How do I feel when building a solution? Do I dread it when I want to build or extend something or add this feature? When you want to build or extend, often that means that there's value out there and you want to capture it. So is the tool an enabler or a blocker of trying to bring this additional functionality or feature? How does it feel when you have that task to build or extend? In SmartSuite, usually it's joy to say, I get to deploy this quickly. You have this new idea, sweet, let's do it. If they have a technical person that wants to try and build something and put together scaffolding, and we'll circle back and look at it, sweet, I'll give you the keys. And people just love using it and love building solutions. So there's always the smart metrics, but then there's that qualitative, how does it feel when building it? Because it's all about adoption. And when people enjoy building and extending, and when leaders see like that dashboard, that's exactly what I want. I've heard that more than once, where like showing them examples of what this looks like, be like that, I want that. Can I build? When a senior leader says that I want to build a dashboard, I mean, that's very telling, because they want to get and they want to geek out, and there are insights that they want to get out of the data. And that joy piece is just absolutely huge.
Amazing. It's so true. And you've replaced some tools. I don't know if you have a count now of, there's been at least a few that you've mentioned you've been able to fully deprecate. Is that right?
Yes. So we fully deprecated 7 different applications so far, and we've got on our roadmap many more and now I have just leaders in all corners saying, hey, I want to, why do we have this boutique solution over here? Is it possible to build this? Yeah, I mean, we had the explosion of cloud SaaS apps and a lot of boutique apps, and that will continue with the advent of AI and development against AI. And so we need to have critical conversation to say, do you want another boutique app, or is that boutique app really just data and a UI that we could replicate and then build exactly how we want it, rather than having to conform to a process? So yes, we're at 7 fully deprecated applications in well under a year that we were able to, from purchasing SmartSuite and the first licenses, in less than a year, we shut down 7 apps, and some of that was just because contract life cycle. So that was important. I always look at contract life cycle for that. We could have done it even sooner, but I think it was like 8-9 months is when we shut down the last big one.
Nice. I'm sure your CIO is happy with this. Probably one of his mandates is to cut his tech spend, his tool consolidation, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, for us, it wasn't cutting tech spend. I'll say that it was reinvest. Was what we really wanted to do, and the level that we were able to reinvest and get to that critical mass point was just absolutely awesome. But then to consolidate from an architecture perspective was huge for me, because like from an architecture perspective, that integration, do I want to have experts in 7 different APIs? And what does it take to maintain that? How much of that knowledge is transferable when we want to be able to integrate those systems? And now we just need to know the one API for SmartSuite to get data in and out. So it's not just rationalizing spend, it was rationalizing architecture and the skill set to integrate and move data in and out of systems. I was able to eliminate 7 different API endpoints down to 1 for any process that we have here in this tool that we rationalize.
We love that. Future outlook. I see we're coming up on time here, just around your Andy's crystal ball for enterprise architecture. How do you see it evolving over the next few years? And where do you see a platform like SmartSuite fitting into that future?
I mean, I expect to see a lot more of this, especially with AI, and people are able to develop, like I said, these boutique apps very fast. It's going to be a fight. People are going to see a lot of things that are going to promise a lot of solutions, a lot of these apps out here, and we already see it now with a lot of SaaS apps. But it's stepping back and saying, is this truly just data with the UI and automation process? And it's going to continue to be, fighting against that just large market of all these apps to try and sell a niche solution, and saying, no, let's continue consolidating. Let's bring it into here. Let's democratize it out further. I love democratized development, being able to give the keys to the individuals and say, here's your process, without worrying about the massive sprawl and technical debt that can come out of that. So I see this continued consolidation, and as you guys continue to release some awesome functionality like that dashboard, that initial release of the dashboard was just huge. And I mean, you guys are just getting started from everything that I've seen in our conversations. I mean, that's just going to continue to allow more and more use cases. So I look forward to seeing this continued consolidation, this whole enterprise operating system concept, to say, let's bring more into this hub, and then, you know, only have these other applications when they truly serve some niche or very or large enterprise like ERP. You know, I don't want to rebuild an ERP. We're not going to rebuild our electronic health record system, but to be able to have that hub for all the processes that build and extend those, or when we have something that we need to do, manage, bring data in, manipulate it, do our process, put the data back, those types of things. I just expect to see more and more of the consolidation around these types of tools.
Amazing. You may have just answered this, but favorite feature in SmartSuite? Just a fun one to end.
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot to choose from, but the LLM and the automation, the bring your own key, to be able to trigger an LLM, and how you can parse those results back into data in SmartSuite. I mean, it's just, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around all the possibilities there. I'm having to rewire my thinking for some of when that came out. So that's just really huge. I really like that. It also reveals a lot about your business model and how you're client first from a business model perspective. You had an opportunity to go and have this massive upcharge of this additional module for AI. But you said, hey, you know, bring your own key for this. You manage costs, no upcharging or anything like that. And this is just an automation. And by the way, we built in the components that where, you know, you guys can really help. So that parsing back into the data elements from those results of the LLM, that's just wild. That really unlocks a lot. And what I say from the AI is the AI is great, but how do you operationalize it? There's so many things that you can do. How do I get it out of that conversational piece and say, I want LLM part of a workflow, that I don't want to have to go to a separate app to do this? How do I operationalize the response out of an LLM? That's my favorite so far.
Awesome. We are glad you appreciate that. Very thoughtful development and evolution of SmartSuite. Big shout out to our co-founders, John Darbyshire, Peter Novosel, and our CTO, Eric Donnelly, constantly thinking about how we can bring value and allow you to have control, right, as an enterprise. So appreciate that. You appreciate that. We're coming up on time. We may need a round two at some point, Eddie. People are chiming in here wanting to know more about your strategy for deploying AI. Imagine that. And I know that you don't have surface level deployments. Like you have a ton of things that you want to do with it. So parking that for time, because we are up, I just wanted to share my appreciation again for you. We never have enough time together, it feels, and we always get real deep into some fun conversation here when we're able to connect. So thank you for investing the time with the community today. You know, people are chiming in just about how much they appreciate your insights.
Yeah, and thank you. You guys, I love the way you guys think. It aligns beautifully with where we want to be, how we want to grow, how we want to scale. And I mean, every time I see a release, I'm just, you know, so even if we hadn't talked about it or anything like that, a requested feature, it's always like, wow, that continues to be on the same line of thinking with how we want to grow. And so, yeah, I love the partnership. Thank you guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, folks, keep an eye on the change logs. These next few weeks, we have some goodies in there for you that will be released. So we have a very busy product team, development team. More to come there. All right, Jeff, anything else? Closing thoughts here?
Just to reiterate, Rick, thank you to Andy for spending the time, sharing the knowledge, and thank you to all the attendees that showed up and participated. I think we got most questions answered. There might be a few outliers that we'll circle back with you as best we can. If not, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach out to me or Rick. I'm Jeff at smartsuite.com. It's GEOFF at smartsuite.com. If you've got questions or ideas on future webinars, let us know. We're going to try to keep these going as often as possible. And yeah, just appreciate everyone that attended today and participated. And again, special thanks to Andy. We appreciate you very much. And yeah, we'll work on doing a round 2 sometime in the future, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wonderful.
All right. Cheers. Make the most of the rest of your week. Take care.
Have a great October.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.